Hello, everybody, and welcome to a series of dialogues on global history at Tokyo College. I am Haneda Masashi, Director of Tokyo College, and today's moderator. Today, we will discuss on the methodology of global history, especially on sources. Professor Antonella Romano of École d'études en sciences sociales, School for Advanced Studies in Social Sciences in Paris. She is a historian of knowledge and the science, and particularly interested in the 16th century Jesuit mission to worldwide. And she has already written numerous books and articles, in particular, L'Europe et l'englobement du monde, which Wenlu will show the copy. Yes, that one in 2016. And she even has an article in Japanese in this book on the city of Rome in the 16th century. So she's very close to me, and as well as to WANG Wenlu, who is a project researcher at Tokyo College. And she spent 2-3 months in Paris under the supervision of Professor Romano a couple of years ago. And so we three know each other very well. And I hope we have a very good discussion on various issues related to global history. So let's start our dialogue. Wenlu, it's you who ask the questions to Professor Romano.
Thank you for your introduction, Professor Haneda. And Professor Romano, it's a great pleasure to meet you again. I have a few questions for you. And my first question is about your understanding of global history. We know that you have worked for years in the field of history of science and knowledge, and recently have also published research in a field close to global history. And may we ask, what is global history according to your understanding? And besides, if you find global history approaches meaningful, could you tell us a bit more about what roles global history approaches play in your research on the history of science and knowledge?
Thank you. Thank you very much. First of all, let me take 1 second to thank you for being here. It's a great pleasure to see you again, and I hope we'll meet directly next time as soon as possible anywhere in the world. This is a starting point for thinking about global history. In this specific moment, I think we have to be particularly cautious that global history is also a way to face the very difficult situation everybody in the world is living today, especially with regard to history, because this would be my first small answer, because global history, if there is any definition, and I doubt it, but this is another point, certainly all the people who are interested in global history share a common interest for the differences in the world, for the different parts of the world, the different cultures, let's put it in this way, for what is not what they are accustomed to know. And I think this is one of the powerful elements of attraction of what global history may be called. And especially today, when borders are closed, we have to keep very, very strong with the idea that we can't go back to our normal and small topics. We have to keep open. And this is very, very important, and one of the reasons why I think global history is one of the many, but one of the most important tools for us to work together and to keep dialoguing as we are doing now. So for me, in short, there is no definition, and all the colleagues who you have been inviting for this conference or for this series of discussions say something different. And this is what makes it beautiful also. For me, there are two major points. The first one is to put the issue of space and spaces at the center of the discussions, which means that we can't give any kind of division of the spaces we are working with as granted. This is not the point. Nations are not natural borders for historians, as a city, as any kind of locality. And this is the first point. The second point is that global history is one of the historiographical tools which have been helping us thinking in terms of scales of analysis, temporal as well as chronological scales of analysis, which also means that it gives us the opportunity to go and to think in terms of entanglement of scales, both, I insist, chronological and spatial. This is what I would say for the definition. As far as my discipline or my field of research is concerned, history of science and knowledge, I think global history is of particular interest and maybe most interesting for us. Why? Simply because history of science is a disciplinary field which developed at some point, mostly the beginning of the 20th century, as a process of thinking about Occidental science as science and its history as the history of science. This is why it is my duty, I would say, to take a critical stance towards this kind of history and genealogy, which in itself escapes the both questions of spaces and times and the question of what science may be as soon as we are out of the European part of the world which has forged this concept, which has shaped this concept of science.
Thank you very much. And I want to go into the second question, which is also the theme of this episode. As you know, the theme of this episode is global history and sources. And we would like to hear your thought about it. Historians produce their work based on primary sources, and those written by local actors in local languages. And how do you think historians who bring their analysis to a global scale should deal with the dilemma between the need to base on primary sources and not being able to overcome the language barriers?
Thank you very much for this absolutely crucial and central question. And I appreciate that you put it on the floor because it is one of the questions which are not necessarily discussed as they should be. I mean, it is one of the key problems we have. As soon as we do history, generally speaking, and we don't have to forget this, we historians are due to elaborate on sources. And in global history, as in other history, local sources is to be put with an interrogation mark. What is it? What do we mean by local sources? What I want to emphasize here is the fact that any source is local because any source is the product of somebody being somewhere and giving an account of. This is a very first point. So localities are embedded into a kind of research program you have with regard to your sources. And what is interesting with global history, I think, is the idea that you can't only stick to one locality, simply because as soon as global history is at stake, you are faced with interactions, and interactions means peoples from different localities, different parts of the world, doing something together, of course. This is the first point. And if you put this at the basement of your investigation, then you have to think another question. And the other question is sources, written sources or other sources? And here we have another very, very important issue, which is not related to global history in per se. It is related with the way in which maybe becoming global as historians has put in front of us the necessity to be critical with regard to a historiographical tradition, which has emphasized written sources as the sources. So this would be my first point, but I guess that what you also had in mind, and it is absolutely true that your second question is crucial, is this question of linguistic skills you have as a researcher to have, or the linguistic skills you do not have. The question of languages, as soon as global history is at stake, is a very tricky one, a very complex one. And we have to work with the idea, as far as I deal with this, that I am limited in terms of linguistic skills, which means that I have to work hard with colleagues who have other linguistic skills. Then, if I have 1 second, just let me add something. The question of linguistic skills is a crucial one as soon as we think in terms of training for our students. Because, of course, now the question is the time you need to be able to deal with another language. But then the question is, when we have to think in terms of curricula for our students, how do we combine disciplinary training, which is crucial, and linguistic training, which is as crucial as well? This is one of the reasons why the possibility we have to move somewhere, to visit you, for instance, and to be visited by you as an honor, is so crucial. But we have to think these issues as connected issues. Skills and training are crucial today, and it means global history, a very difficult kind of history to practice.
Thank you very much for your very detailed explanation on both localities and language skills. And my next question is kind of related to the latter part of last question, which is about languages again, but I think it's of utmost importance, and you are the best person to ask, I think. And we noticed that you have been publishing substantially in 3 languages, French, Italian, and English. How do you use these 3 different languages intentionally? And also, could you tell us how the supremacy of English as an academic language in the world affects the research and education in the field of global history in France?
Thank you very much. I feel very honored that I am able to say something about this very, very complex question. Let's start very briefly with my own experience. I would add Spanish as one of the languages I'm publishing with, and not because I want to make show off about I don't know what. It's mostly a matter of mirroring something. The languages in which you publish are also the mirror of the colleagues you work with. And this is very, very important. I am highly committed with many colleagues in Latin America and in Spain to say something about these 4 languages: Spanish, English, French, Italian. French is becoming a rare language in the academic world, and we have to be aware of this. Nobody, or less and less people, read French, and this is something we have to face, to try to understand, not to try necessarily to cry on it, simply to face it. It is a moment of deep change in the ways in which the academic world is organizing itself. In the 18th century, it was organized around French. 18th century, a long, long time ago. Today, it seems it is around English, due to the fact that the Anglophone world is a very large world, and very interestingly, a world which is present in the different parts of the world. The English language does not only refer to the United States or to UK, it also refers to Australia, New Zealand, and many other countries where English is the language. What does it mean? It means that, first of all, there is a plurality of styles in global history due to these different ways of using English and being Anglophone. This is the first point. The second point is that what you called the supremacy of English in the academic world is something we can't be happy with. We can't be happy with, but not because I am sad that French is no more this language, simply because it is a matter of different issues. Let me put 2 or 3 on the floor. The first one is that there is, of course, a problem of the opening of the academic world. Our academic world is a global academic world today, of course, and this means that we have to find a lingua franca. That's fair, but this doesn't mean that we do have to accept only one lingua franca. This is another question. And here, of course, we are faced with economic issues, the way in which academic press works, the way in which academic journals work. And it is not only a matter of colleagues from UK or USA who impose themselves as the one who wants this to be. There are economic logics, and related to this, there is a major question, which is the question of translations. We do not, the market of translations is a very, very asymmetric market. We do not publish enough in other languages, be it English, works in Japanese, in Chinese, in Russian, in all these, in Brazilian, in all these academic languages which refer to other academic traditions. And this is what I want to insist in. There is a true risk that a monolinguistic perspective toward academic life does deny the diversity of our academic traditions. And I think that the more we have the possibility to access other traditions, the more we are strong, because we are faced with ways of thinking which are not the one we were expecting. And we have to be faced constantly with the surprise of what other ways of thinking, of doing history, makes us stronger and more critical in order to face the issues and the challenges of the global world where we live. So in France, there is a lot to be done with regard to this, a lot to be done. We have journals, for instance, who take some decisions. I'm part of the Annales Histoire et Sciences Sociales Committee. We constantly look for colleagues who are not part of this unified or so-called unified English academic world. We translate into French if necessary, but we also decided to offer English edition of the Annales, which is a way to combine these things. So this is a small example. Of course, we have to, our students have to know English as they have to know at least 1, 2, 3 other languages. And this is a way in which we will also make it a very interesting world as it is.
Thank you very much. I completely share your opinion.
Thank you.
We in Japan has the same problem as in France, of course, the supremacy of language, English language in academic world. But monolinguist way of monolinguistic thinking is too simple. And maybe we who know more languages, multiple linguists, will create new knowledge and take lead in academic world in near future, leaving people just speaking in English. We hope so. Yeah.
And this is what I learned with you a lot.
Thank you very much. So let's keep discussing, keep in touch, and I look forward to seeing you again, either in Paris or in Tokyo. Thank you very much, Antonella, today for your.
Thank you to both of you. It has been a great, great pleasure to see you, and take care and see you very soon. Bye. Thank you.